Welcome to the Copilot Connection. We're here to share with you all the news, insights, and capabilities of the Microsoft Copilot ecosystem across the entire Microsoft stack. I'm Kevin McDonnell, an MVP for Copilot and Copilot Extensibility, and the Copilot and Agent lead for the AMBG area within Avanade and Accenture. And we'll be releasing episodes as podcasts and on YouTube with insights from experts from the community and Microsoft on what the different areas of Copilot are, the impact they can make to you and your organization, and what you need to do to prepare for them or start implementing them now, and even how you can extend them. Now, this is our regular one where I ditch my regular co-host of Zoe and bring in my far more beautiful co-host, Garry. Do you want to say hello?
Compliments will get you everywhere, Kev. Hi, everyone. My name is Garry Trinder. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, focused on Microsoft 365 Copilot Extensibility.
Isn't everyone? Do you imagine if we couldn't say Copilot in meetings, we'd be absolutely screwed at the moment, wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, evidently I'm struggling, but there we go. Too much Copilot on the brain.
So hopefully some of you listened to our last episode where Zoe and I talked through some of the Ignite items within there, but we thought, it's funny, it's Ignite. You think it's generally it's the kind of more infrastructure end user pieces, not developer side, but in this world of Copilot and agents, there's an awful lot in there to cover from that side. So we're now going to take that other side of Ignite, or maybe not all the other side, but quite a big chunk of it, and look at some of the dev items within there as well. Was there any? How much of Ignite did you actually catch, Garry? Because I know with Zoe, she was over there. We talked about how she didn't see any sessions at all, and talked a bit about the venue and things. But what about you? You weren't there, were you?
No, I wasn't this year. No, I was at the last Ignite in Chicago. I didn't make it to San Francisco, but I know that, it was lots of announcements as usual. Lots of big announcements as well around, mainly kind of like management and governance of agents, which I think has been kind of, been a big ask. And we've seen like Agent 365, Agent Factory, lots of different services mentioned, announced. And that being
sorry, Garry,
front.
we did talk in the last episode about Agent 365, but not Agent Factory. Do you want to talk about a little bit about what that is? Because I haven't got that in my notes.
No, I know. And on that side, that is something that I need to I need to learn on. Definitely, or find more information. Like I say, it's been a lot of diverse announcements across kind of M365, Azure as well, across the whole board. So like everyone else, trying to keep up with the deluge of information that comes out of a build and Ignite. There's only so much you can kind of take in as well. So there are some spots in my knowledge where I need to pick up as well.
and it felt one of the things I've been enjoying. We've been talking for almost an hour and a half before this, going through things, and there's quite a few announcements that are kind of weren't front and center, but I think are really important that I think we'll dig into a bit more today. But maybe before we go into those slightly, I don't want to say lesser well-known ones, I think one of the big things that we talked about is renames. And funnily enough, when I was talking with Zoe, we didn't really cover renames that much because I think there were more within the dev side on that. And the big one that wasn't really a very big one is Azure AI Foundry is now Microsoft Foundry. Game changing. Absolutely game changing, that one.
At least it's still Foundry. At least it's not something completely different. We're just dropping the Azure AI part and adding Microsoft in front. So it's a change, and you'll see this in the portals as well. There is a new portal, so that is changing as well. You still get to the old portal, which is still good, but there's definitely a lot of enhancements going around. So if you hear people talking about Microsoft Foundry, they mean Azure AI Foundry. So to help you help you understand, what everyone is talking about.
And I think it's interesting because often these renames are an indication of where things are going. And to me, what this is saying is it's not just Azure. It's bigger than that. It
Yeah.
goes wider than that. I think if we look at Syntex from a few years ago, SharePoint Syntex became Microsoft Syntex. Actually, and then disappeared. Okay, ignore that reference. But it was generally a size that this isn't just about this one thing. We want it to go further. So I don't think it was anything that was said that necessarily pushed towards that, but it's always a nice indication of the thinking that's going on. And I think it fits with that Agent 365, that control plane. There's the Foundry control plane that's talked about as well. So managing agents from that Foundry side that's there. So I think that's where they're looking at that spreading out a bit further that I think will be interesting to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those watching on video, I'm sharing the screen of the new portal now. Yes, I'm in dark mode. No, I'm not going to apologize for it on there. One of the other, actually, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but it's nice seeing these different tabs. So there's a Discover tab that makes it even easier to find the different models within there, and the tools as well. I feel this is a big one that they've kind of brought the MCP servers and other things that you can do to build within that. That's like a box MCP server. Lots of ones I don't know. Infobip, I'm sure that means a lot to someone on there. But that ability to build reusable tools, I think, is really important with that as well. So interesting to see that within there. Builds is another area that's made a big difference. I actually really like this new portal. I think it's a lot easier to get around things. It's a lot simpler. You go to agents, you see your list of agents. You can create new ones from there as well. One of the bits that I do want to call out is previously in the Foundry portal, you could have connected agents, and we'll talk a little bit more about connected agents in another area later. They've taken that away. So if you do decide to move your agents over to this new portal, you can still go back to the old one. There is a tab at the top that says you can flip over to that. But if you do, any connected agents you have are no longer connected on that. They've moved that away. Instead, they've got these new workflows. So you can have a blank workflow, sequential, human in the loop, because humans are still important, and a group chat one within there. And if I pick up, I'm trying to think of the nice one I had, which if I'm honest, it doesn't work right now, but I'm not going to mention that. If I pick this one up, you can see I can use an agent to get the state of this game, and then I can have these slightly more deterministic views of the output from that agent. I can go down different paths. So whereas you had to kind of put in your instructions previously where you went to the different agents, now you've got a bit more kind of control and visualization on it. And I quite like this.
Yeah, it's the non-deterministic nature of a language model and then the deterministic nature of a workflow, right? And combining the two, and having a visual designer to do that. Yeah, I really like the new designer. It's really clear as to what's going on. The fact you can put little notes on there is a cool little feature. So
I haven't yet, but they are nice.
Documentation, Kev.
I know. There's also, if you don't want to have a visualizer, there's your nice YAML that you can go through and set with it as well, which I like. I like that that kind of interject. Yeah, it's a bit like Logic apps where you can flip to the is it JSON rather than JSON behind that as the code versus the kind of main visualizer, and you've got a nice easy way to how to run those. You've got a code one, so it all feels very, very natural within there. And my favorite button, Garry, what happens when I click on publish up here?
Yeah, the ability to publish it to Teams and Copilot.
It's exciting. You didn't sound quite as exciting there as I was hoped, but I think this is really nice. This is the opening up. Previously, you had to manually create your agent in Foundry. You then had to use the M365 agent SDK, wrap around your agent that you had in Foundry, publish that up with a manifest independently of that. now it can all be done through the portal. Now that doesn't take away what you could do before, and I know there may be some people who are a little concerned around this, that this may not do things exactly how you want, but I
Mm.
I like this. I think it's good that you've got that simplicity of getting those Foundry ones into Teams, into Copilot. You've still got that description, developer name, details that you put up there, and it will handle all the things of putting it into the Teams whatchamacallit store, app store within that, and we'll make that available as an agent at the click of a button, assuming you have the
Yeah.
right admin access and blah, blah, blah. And you can approve that and all the good things there. But I like this.
Yeah, it's a story that I think we'll see more of. And we've actually talked about this before, right? There's all these different ways of building agents across Azure, M365 Copilot, Copilot Studio, but they all feel separate and independent. Whereas actually, you might want to use a Microsoft Foundry agent, right? And then go, well, why can't I put that into Copilot and use it?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of tying up the different elements of the abstracting that away, right? Because the alternative at the moment would be, well, you've got to write code. You've got to go in, you've got to write a custom engine agent, deploy your Microsoft Foundry agent, connect them up with the agent framework like SDK. You can do all that, and there's a benefit. You can still do that. You'll have
Yeah.
the level of control to make changes. But if you maybe thinking, hey, well, the bot that sorry, not the bot, the agent that I've got and I'm building, it's good in Foundry. Actually, I just want it as is, right? And publish that out to employees in my organization. Have the controls that you have with Teams agents and custom engine agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you're able then to distribute that to not just everyone, but subset of your organization, departments, all that kind of stuff. You get all those controls that have been around for a while, and you get to consolidate all of your agents into one UI, right? Because
Absolutely.
you can just go to
Copilot is the
Copilot.
UI for AI.
Exactly. So it's one way of going in there and checking this out. It's good that you're already in Azure because you've got Foundry, you've got Resource Group. It's deploying a bot service in the background as well.
Still a bot. Still a bot underneath.
It's still a bot. It's still using the bot framework protocols, so the activity protocol. That is how your agent communicates with Copilot, and how the messages from your agent get into the Copilot user interface. It's all still using that bot framework service behind the scenes.
But yeah, really nice. I'm sure some people will kind of cut into it and find problems with it, etc., etc. I have seen it's definitely a preview. There's definitely issues I've kind of hit with it going through there.
Yeah.
So do go into this very cautiously. This is not designed for production use yet, but go and have a play. It's really, really nice in there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely this is very, very new,
Yeah.
and interesting that it's called preview, not frontier, which you might hear a lot about as well. They are the same thing in my mind, but yeah, just keep that in mind as well when you hear this frontier word.
We were meant to get all the comedy things out before we started the show. Anyway, no. The other bit I like here is there's traces, so it's got built in here. You can seal the messages as you've been trying it out. There's evaluations, which is the tests, which you can make sure you put in there. As I told Garry, I always make sure I put tests into my agents on that as well. So really, all kind of in one place. I'm going to head back to the home screen because there was one other big announcement around Foundry. And that's these new arrivals, the Claude models are now available in Foundry. And it's funny, I kind of forgot they weren't, if I'm honest, because Claude's such a big thing. And I've heard so many people at Microsoft talking about how useful Claude is. We've had it in Researcher and Copilot Studio, but they weren't actually in Foundry. They weren't in that Microsoft ecosystem. This is the first time they will be in that ecosystem.
Yeah, and personally, I use Claude Sonnet 4.5 for pretty much everything that I do in VS Code with GitHub Copilot.
Interesting.
It is like, for me, it was a game changer of using an agent for coding. It was that good, of how it kind of dealt with situations, how it was more actionable, how it would call tools, be a bit more active in doing that as well. So it's interesting, you've got all these different models. All of them operate in different ways. They have their own preferences and biases as well. And in some cases, that can be a good thing. In some cases, that can be a bad thing, depending on what you're using that model for. But I think, again, it's kind of going back to, like, if we go back to build, we had the announcement for Grok being in what is now Foundry at the time, Azure AI Foundry. But it's that, Azure being the place where if you want to run your AI workloads, you can benefit from the wide selection of models that are available from Microsoft, and through the different providers like Anthropic. But then you've also got Hugging Face as well. So you have a full wide selection of language models with all of the enterprise controls which you come to expect with a platform like Azure. It's all built in to the platform. So
Which is really nice. One other announcement that I again forgot to put in the notes. The problem with all these models is where on earth do you start as well? And I found myself get overwhelmed and kind of always fall back to ChatGPT. But one of the other ones was a model router, which will automatically look at what you're doing and recommends the best model based on that within there. So I think there's really that understanding of the complexity of that and things coming in which will help with that as well, which I liked. I thought was an interesting one. I'm going to confess I haven't dug into it that much, so people might go, oh, you don't want to use that, you want to use more, spend more time looking at it. But I love that they're kind of going down that route of thinking about it as well.
Yeah, I think on that topic, I mean, it's experimentation. Dependent on what you're doing, depends on cost as well. So whilst I'm saying, oh yeah, I've used Claude Sonnet 4.5, that is a premium model that comes with an additional cost over the model router approach. Like for if I was going to apply it to the scenarios where I use agents in coding, is there's an auto mode in GitHub Copilot chat, which is very similar. It's going to pick a model for the task at hand, which then you can be more efficient. So again, it kind of, there's a lot of things to experiment with. There's a lot of maybe limitations. There's cost implications as well, about running some of these models. But it all comes down to, what do you need the language model to do for you? Do you need something that is, one of the latest, biggest models to run if you're doing summarization, for example? Like, you might need it for the context window, but now a lot of models have a lot higher context windows than we previously had before. So all kind of changes. But yeah, experimentation is part of what needs to be done.
I think what I found from Foundry is it's kind of moving away from the I am an expert in everything, I know everything about this, to people like myself who I kind of think I'm up to the models, and then I look at it and go, what's GPT OSS 120B or Maverick 17B 128E? I feel I should know that, but I don't within that. And the model router will help me. And as it says within this part of the book of news, it's 40% faster and 50% lower costs from some early previews on there. So it's, you can't really, well, I'm sure some people will argue with that, but you shouldn't be arguing with that. So that's really nice. Enjoyed that, and definitely another weapon that you don't have to use but can. And it seems to be a recurring story around a lot of the dev stuff at Ignite. Things to make it easier. If you don't want to use it, don't.
It's understanding why you would want to use those things and what you're actually wanting to achieve by using it as well. That's the key thing. Don't just be kind of taken by it's got more parameters and it can do more things. It's like, yeah, but still, what do you need it to do?
But why?
Exactly. But why?
Yeah. Talking of things that you don't need to use but could, and talking of renames as well, Teams AI Library's got a new name.
It has, yeah.
It's got a new name, not a new URL by the look of things, but it does have a new name. So Teams AI Library is now Teams SDK.
It is, yeah. An interesting choice. We've already added Teams SDK. It was Teams JavaScript SDK, which you'd use for tabs, implementing SSO in tabs as well, or doing things in, mainly in the tabs, few of the things that you use it for. But this is mainly for building agents in Teams in the main.
Well, yeah, I think it is, but it's apps as well, isn't it? I think that's, it's got app authentication. This is what you'd use to build the Teams app as well now, isn't it? Or am I getting that wrong?
Correct. Yeah. So it's still,
so you got the tabs.
The common thing is it's all on bot framework as well. So you have all of.
Don't mention that
word. it's used in bot framework for bots and message extensions. Agents in Teams, and the agentic part is what comes with the Teams SDK as well, because it has an inbuilt orchestrator in there and planner, and it's got support for A2A and MCP as well. So there's some like agentic features in there, but you're right, it still handles a lot of the kind of common kind of development tasks that you would want for building apps in Teams, adaptive cards, dialogues, task modules, those kind of things. So it does cover a wide range of different features, if you like, that you can build in Teams apps. But recently it's been definitely more focused on the agentic side of things.
Yeah. I'm going to be at ESPC next week, and I know Andrew Connell's there, and he's certainly had some views about Teams AI Library 2.0. So I might have a chat with him and see what his verdict is of all this, and whether he's seen any differences here. But one other bit I want to call out, that when I searched, I actually came up with this GitHub page, and I love it that we have been renamed to Teams SDK, which, I don't know, makes me think that maybe it wasn't entirely their choice, but I won't dig into that any further to get Garry into trouble. The third rename that I kind of saw, and I've heard a few people quote this, but I don't think is quite true, is Microsoft Graph has been renamed as WorkIQ, because WorkIQ, talked about that in the last show, is that kind of layer of bringing all your files and content into Copilot. Is that quite true, Garry, or have I been a bit...
Not quite. I think there is an element of graph in there, but WorkIQ is kind of the, we always talked about graph as being the gateway to intelligence, right? A gateway to your company data. So kind of taking that on, but
Sorry,
including...
Garry, I've seen some companies, intelligence might not be the word from that, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I won't name any.
But yeah, that's kind of one element, but the kind of the work, it's WorkIQ in Copilot. So this is the combining things like access to data, the knowledge sources, the memory as well. So as you're using Copilot over time, it learns about you.
It's knowing who you are, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. knowing who you are, and also the inference as well. So, kind of how is Copilot going to put all that together with the tools and the agents and it's that intelligence layer when you put things into Copilot. What is happening behind to drive?
I love this post from Michelle Tixera from the Cloud and AI Solutions team at Microsoft. Graph is the data access layer, WorkIQ is the intelligence layer. We did talk about this in the last show, and I forgot to put it in the show notes, so it's going into this one on there, on what those differences are. So really useful image for people who are asking about that. So I'll make sure I do actually share that this time.
Yeah. But the graph is still there. The API is still there.
Yes.
That's not gone away.
It's not been renamed to the Work IQ library or anything like that.
Not that I'm aware of. No, it's still there. It's
I thought
still
you were going to
graph.
say not yet for a minute. Which I thought was good. So yeah, made sure I reference that. Also, and I'm sorry I keep talking about the last show, make sure you go back and listen to that. We talked about Agent 365 quite a lot, but what we didn't touch on, and if I'm honest, I didn't realize quite how much was there, was a lot of people see Agent 365 as the admin center, that control pane, as you said to it. But there is an SDK side to Agent 365 that's available as well. Sorry, Gary, I'm going to do this now. This is the Microsoft Agent 365 SDK. This is not the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK. Obviously, they're very different sounding from that, but make sure you don't get confused. This is the Agent 365 SDK. What's that used for, Gary?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we're great at naming things, right? We take the same words, change them slightly, rearrange them, and we have two different things. So yeah, so to confuse you even more is that this SDK builds on top of the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK as well. So the way in my head I kind of split this is Microsoft 365 Agents SDK is, I've mentioned it before, bot framework service, the way that your agent can communicate with Copilot through that protocol, right? So there's activity protocol. That's where the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK comes in. Now, the Agent 365 SDK is kind of taking that, and so say you've built a custom engine agent, you've used M365 Agents SDK. Now you want to connect it to a language model, or you want to use an orchestrator, something like LangChain, for example, or you want to use agent framework, what was semantic kernel and autogen. The Agent 365 SDK gives you the ability in your agent to connect to MCP servers that are in Office, in Microsoft 365. So in the platform now, there are MCP servers exposed that you can connect to that will give you tools for getting files from SharePoint, emails, checking calendars. There's a whole list of MCP servers and the tools that are available. But it's another way of getting at that content in M365. So it's one side, like you mentioned, Kev, about adding in the observability, the governance, the management of agents centrally.
I was going to say there's that important bit about almost like the logging, how you define this, that the SDK helps you write that. So if you needed to write more custom messages that get logged, this is the SDK that does it as well.
Yeah, it's that all central like control plane of all these agents. So Agent 365 is it's not a case of, oh, this is a new SDK to build agents with. It's like if you're building a custom engine agent and you're using the M365 Agents SDK, then you can add this as well alongside it. So yeah, I think again, this is really new. This is in preview, Frontier. So you need to be on the program to actually get this, because again, it's two parts, right? One, yes, you've got the SDK, but your tenant actually needs to have the MCP servers exposed. And interestingly, as we looked earlier, when we were looking through the list of tools in Foundry, some of those MCP servers were exposed in there. You could see them. So you can use them on either side. So it's like, you can use the SDK or at the code level. If you're in Foundry and you're doing things at the agent service level, you're in the UI, still use those tools, which is, you get both sides. You get the lower code option, but you've also got the pro code option as well.
Which is nice. One other thing I noticed here, because I got a bit excited about this, so I want to stop people getting too excited on there. There was a notifications workflow. I was like, oh, It can respond to events and notifications. So you can kind of trigger off agents. I have actually read it properly, and it says notifications from M365 applications.
Yeah.
What this is designed for is when, so you can get an agent receives an email, which is quite nice. So you can mention an agent and get an email. So you can trigger things there. If an agent is mentioned in a Word doc, Excel, PowerPoint. So whether this will expand, I genuinely don't know from there, whether we'll have more ways of triggering agents, and this will be the SDK for it, but it's kind of nice. There's some nice things in there, but this isn't the all-encompassing, I can trigger things to an agent through this on there. So just keep an eye on that. One other thing, I've just been thinking here, actually, I've decided that this is too complicated with the names of the Agent 365 SDK and the Microsoft 365. So I've decided the Microsoft 365 Agent SDK, I'm going to call Garry, and the Agent 365 one is going to be called Dan. So any confusion, I'm going to talk about Garry and Dan, just to make life easier.
Okay. Whatever helps you, Kev. Whatever helps you.
Moving on very quickly. Related to that, you talked about those MCP servers. And again, we'll put all the links to these notes on there. I think actually you can see some of these. Where was it at the top? But yeah, in Agent 365, you can see, for those who can see on the screen, there's a tools area of that, and you can see those. One thing that I'm quite excited, and this is something I couldn't find. Someone mentioned this to me, a different Dan, funnily enough, and then I couldn't find it. But deep down in this documentation, there is something about the Microsoft MCP management server, and this allows you to create and manage custom MCP servers without a UI or writing custom code. This is a low-code MCP, which I think is quite exciting. How do you do that? Well, you have to, in this low-code version, you have to use VS Code. Okay, that's got me a little confused there. But once you've done that, so you can do Control-Shift-P and look for Add Server, and that allows you to add an MCP server. And then all you need to do is do the simple thing of finding the environment ID for your Power Platform ID, put that into this URL here, name the server MCP management, and then there's this single line down the bottom that says you can do this to create MCP servers. I'm kind of hoping there might be some more documentation. I certainly plan to give this a try and get some videos out there if there aren't some more, because I love the sound of this. I feel it's hidden a little bit. This sounds like it should be A, trumpeted more, and B, made a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what it's doing is it's using VS Code as the example here, but it could be any MCP client. It's anything that can connect to an MCP server. You're just adding in that server, exposing the tools to the agent that you want to use, and then you would use natural language to invoke those tools. So from the create MCP server perspective, well, the agent could simply return with, okay, great, what do you want? Here are the things that I need. Can you give them? That's how I hope it will work. I've not tried this yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that, again, so we've got these default MCP servers that are now being exposed. We've got the whole reference in there. So, that will cover lots of different scenarios in M365, but then to add your own in there to centralize them as well in Agent 365, I think is potentially really powerful, because you get the ability then to use these MCP servers, whether you're in pro code or low code, which I've done both sides, Power Platform and Pro Dev. And one of the things about Power Platform is the connector ecosystem is really powerful because of the controls that you could put around them for Power Platform development. So from an admin perspective, that was really, really important and useful to many organizations. And that was a key reason to use connectors. Whereas we didn't necessarily have that on the pro code side. But now with MCP servers, hopefully you got the options now. It's not like, I've got to use this way. Oh God, my voice is gone.
just
Excuse
while
me.
you're finding some water, I absolutely agree. I think having that, I love this unification. I know the Power Platform community conference was on recently, and low code is dead. Apparently for that, which I don't think is entirely true, but I think it's
Yeah.
changing. There's new worlds there, which I absolutely do agree with. One thing I'm noticing here, because I think the other thing I loved about those Power Platform connectors was they made it relatively easy, or at least they encouraged to do properly, securing your APIs and securing your
Yeah.
connectors. I notice here it talks about signing in with your account credentials. I'm hoping that these custom MCP servers also encourage that. I've seen a bit too much with MCP server examples that are just, oh, it doesn't matter. You don't need to put security around it. You're only using it for blah and things like that, which I kind of get because it simplifies it. But I think it worries me that people are finding it too easy to not do the right thing. And I hope this will make it easier for people to do the right thing. Because I've had a real struggle trying to build an MCP server with the right authentication. I want to create one that wraps around Salesforce. I wanted to expose and have people only return information that they should have access to. And I've just found it really hard. And I've given up slightly because I'm a busy man. And the second it kind of gets hard, I go, right, someone else will do this hopefully for me soon on there. But I would like things to be easy so that I can innovate and do things without getting stuck in the weeds. That's why vibe coding has been so powerful. That's why a lot of these things are there, because people can do things without worrying about a lot of the minutiae, the details within there. I can hear so many people going, yes, Kev, that's the problem. They don't understand that. No, it's not. I agree there is a problem of people not understanding it, but I don't want to have to do it all the damn time. So I hope this makes it easier. And I find that's what low code does as well. So it's important you understand the fundamentals. It's also important you don't have to deal with them all the time. Rant over.
Yeah, it's having that user context throughout the flow, right? It's okay. It's going to be used by different people. It's going to be able to access different data based on who is using it, because you want all of your security controls, all the governance that you've put around your content in M365 to flow through these MCP servers, right? You don't want to expose data that you shouldn't be. So yeah, having that pass through. Or a way of the MCP server to go, oh, okay, yeah, I know who the person is. I can call this on behalf of them, or run the tool on behalf of them. Then you keep all that security in place. So yeah, like I say, I'm eager to use this and try it out as well. But it's for me, having these MCP servers across Office. For me, it was kind of like the natural step of like, we can use natural language. So therefore, if I can, articulate what I need in natural language rather than a series of API calls and let the agent handle that, that makes it really, really powerful for productivity scenarios, because you can expose that as an agent and, rather than having a workflow that runs all the time or lots of flows potentially that do single jobs, it can just be text that gets interpreted and does the actions for you.
So I'll put in the show notes, because actually, as soon as I saw that in A365, I got excited. I built a new Copilot Studio agent to use the SharePoint. There's a SharePoint list MCP. And I got it to point at the Copilot Connection SharePoint site I've got in my tenant, where I kind of keep a list of guests and things, generally people I really should have spoken to and got on the show and haven't got around to yet. And I could, within minutes, I could say who have I spoken to, who haven't I in natural language. Really, really nice. So I'll put a link to that. One caveat, I haven't yet found a way to kind of, yes, it's permissioned. So it will only surface list items that I have permission to. I couldn't find a way within the agent itself to guarantee that it would only use that site on there. It's there were times it was quite easy to go to every single site on there. So I think we'll see people, the way people use it evolve a bit as they start trying these things out and work out the patterns that work there. But just a slight caveat on that. I love this idea. You can have natural language search everything. Unfortunately, there's natural language that searches everything as well. So double-edged
There is,
swords to that.
There is, yeah.
Moving on a bit, I like this. I'm going to be honest that I am slightly biased because Sebastian Levert is one of the loveliest men alive and fantastic with that. But another one of those announcements that didn't make it into the book of news, but the general availability of TypeSpec. I think this might be another rename to TypeSpec for Microsoft 365 Copilot in there, obviously bundling either Copilot agents or AI into a name. Make sure you get the funding. Fantastic work, everyone, on that. But for those who've looked at declarative agent, if you've used what was Agent Builder, now Copilot Studio Lite, that uses an engine behind there that these declarative agents build. And if you want to go pro code, you want to manage the deployment of those, you want to be able to work on those agents together with other people, you can do that by putting, you can put those, what you call the word, manifests, the JSON files that support that into your repository, and you can work on that together. However, it's JSON files and there's a lot of repetition. It's really easy to break and do things on there. It's not code. TypeSpec adds a more coded layer around that. And I've been a big fan of this. I know Reshmi, who's another MVP I work with, who's played around with it, Paul Bullock as well. It just feels a bit more natural. It feels you can break things down into more logical bunches with it as well. So big fan of this. I don't think it's used enough. I think it kind of fits into a bit of a gap that not enough people want to make use of. And I think it's kind of a shame because I like it.
Yeah, I mean, TypeSpec's been really interesting kind of approach. Like originally it was for APIs, describing APIs, which has now been kind of, the same concept can be applied to declarative agents, because like you say, it's just creating JSON files that are then packaged up. But yeah, the pain of
stuff, isn't it?
Exactly, you're defining things in a type safe language so that you get that linting as you're building out your agent, so that if you miss something, you don't then have to spend lots of time trying to debug JSON files which are not telling you anything. The platform may just turn around and go, I don't know what to do with this, and you get an error which doesn't really mean anything. Whereas this will bring those kind of issues. The same thing we had with JavaScript and TypeScript, right? TypeScript would show you the errors exactly before you went to execute that code. So you're giving yourself that ability to fix those issues or see those issues before you try these things. But yeah, from a development perspective, it means that if you've got something complex, you can split these agents up into multiple files as well, and then write everything in TypeSpec, and then generate the manifests, and have that update as well, which is another thing, because you're not dealing directly with the raw outputs. I mean, yeah, you still get those raw outputs.
You can, yeah, absolutely.
So it's generating JSON just like TypeScript is generating JavaScript. It's a really interesting piece of tech.
Yeah, really like that, and that leads me nicely on to we mentioned those JSON files. They are basically the declarative agent schema, and there was an update to the schema as well, which added the drum roll. I'm not going to bash on the table because it make a horrible noise, people listening, but connected agents with that as well. So you can start to, we talked right at the beginning about connected agents within Foundry. You can do that within Copilot Studio. Now you can do this with your declarative agents here, which is really interesting because with Copilot Studio Lite, you can't. There's no UI way to do this, but I think this is really helpful. I'm going to come back now. Someone's going to, from Microsoft, might shout at me about this on there. A lot of people are like, why on earth would you do this and not use Copilot Studio? I have a few times now compared a very similar agent using these declarative agents with exactly the same instructions and knowledge files in Copilot Studio, and have got better and more accurate results on there. We were doing some work with a client, and it kept missing items from the content that they had. When I put it in Copilot Studio Lite, and we've now converted it to a declarative agent, it didn't miss that. It was more accurate. So the orchestrator underneath can at times be more effective. It kind of comes back to what we were talking about, the model choosing. There's times you need to work out which model is most effective. I think it's the same with the orchestrators. They do behave differently. It's very easy to think they're the same on there, but
Yeah.
that is something I'm seeing some real benefits in some of these in quite a few scenarios.
Yeah, there is actually one extra thing which is on that list. So the connected agents is definitely something which I know a lot of people have been really interested in, building these smaller declarative agents with specific I guess responsibilities in mind. So then you
Yeah,
can
yeah, that's a good point.
orchestrate them. Great, because it's declarative. There's no quote code here, if you know what I mean. You don't need to put it on a server, host it somewhere. It's running in the platform. The other thing is embedded knowledge. So now you've got the ability to have like local files. So local in the sense of it's in the package, so that you can have files in there so that you can use those as well. So that's an interesting thing which we didn't have before. So you've kind of got your own little local knowledge source as well.
Yeah,
And
and it's also got the people object and the group mailboxes within that as well. So adding some of the
yeah,
functionality it's been in Copilot Studio for a while, it's kind of increasing some of those, which is great.
definitely. And I think this is the thing with declarative agents is it's always worth keeping an eye on, because there's always updates happening to the schema, new functionality that's not quite available yet in like the platforms, because the UIs maybe haven't been updated, or it's something that isn't exposed, but because you can kind of come in and you can define exactly what you want in the declarative agent manifests and the API plugins, you get that straight away as soon as the platform is updated, when the schema is updated as well. So yeah, it's really it's a really interesting space that, again, because it's building on top of Copilot as well.
Yep.
Things like we've seen GPT-5 start to become the default model. This will then, this will then apply to declarative agents as well, so that you get those model improvements over time, and you get the speed, you get the intelligence as well, with the new models. So yeah, always worth looking and seeing. Maybe a declarative agent could do this now.
Yeah, and I'm going to go down another slight rabbit hole, because I remember just before Ignite, Copilot Studio Live, I was doing a demo and got down a rabbit hole. There was new functionality to be able to kind of edit and do things with documents. So not just reference documents of knowledge, but take action on those. So you could ask it to like add things into Excel file. Just maybe
Yeah.
think, oh, that must be in here as well. And I noticed there's a whole section in this around interact with documents on there with a declarative agent. So you can actually, where you have highlighted text, you can actually get it to do things
Yeah.
with that text item on there. And I was particularly intrigued. You can ask it to generate an image based on text, and I'm not going to go too far, but it's got me some ideas of kind of things you could build around that I think is really interesting. So
Yeah.
it's not just getting knowledge and doing things with it anymore.
And you're pointing out something like really interesting as well, is the like we didn't have this before with declarative agents. It was very much like I'm in Copilot and I've got the agent. Now agents are showing up in Office apps,
Yeah.
and declarative agents are one of the first. Word is definitely the one that has the most features, and they the interactions that you can have with the documents there is really quite interesting. And I think, again, over time, having that benefit of, okay, I've got my declarative agent, I know that it's going to work with Word as new features kind of come out as well in the Office apps. You're going to benefit from that without having to write any code as well. So yeah, I
That's
found that
interesting.
be really interesting, and actually, people working in docs, I just want to open up an agent, maybe ask some questions, get some information, put that into my doc as well, then use Copilot in the doc to kind of, rewrite that response as well. You're using AI in different places to generate content.
Yeah, and very quickly on that, obviously, I think this came out before Ignite, but you can add MCP servers into these. So all those fantastic MCP servers we talked about earlier, the ones you build as well with that MCP management. Damn it, I've got the other word. Center, whatever it's called.
Server.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then you could also use those with declarative agents as well. So it really opens up a lot of things. So yeah, really, really interesting. I think a kind of undersold world that is all included in your license as well for M365 Copilot. Absolutely not why it's not mentioned enough, I'm sure. Anyway, moving on quickly on that. Final one, and this is, I'll be honest, an area I feel I should know more about and should do more with and kind of do slightly, but never enough. A bit like testing, it always feels like something that someone else does on there, which is red teaming on there. And it shouldn't be. I'm adding to that one. I talked about evaluations earlier, testing your items. It's in Foundry, but there's also an AI red teaming agent in Foundry. So you can build that into your pipelines. For those who don't know, red teaming is trying to get your agent to do something it shouldn't. The early stories, it wasn't Delta Airlines, I think it was a Canadian airline, where someone got a free ticket by saying they were dead and therefore allowed to be transported. And it kind of inferred that when, yeah, that's okay, let me give you a free ticket on there. It's those kind of things that you can do to get around the agents on that, and you can bring in prompt injection attacks. I know the jailbreaking attempts was something with Agent 365 that was there. They would detect that and alert people on there. So really interesting ones. As we get more advanced with agents, those people who try and break things get more advanced as well. So taking a look at this, that red teaming agent to try out and compare the results, try and find out where it does do things that you don't expect it to do is going to be really important, especially as you scale up these agents within your organization. There is always I'm hoping this doesn't trigger anything explicit. There's always an awkward sod that will be trying to break things into there. So it's really important you build into this. You can see here some of the evaluations around violence, self-harm, sexual hate, unfairness within there, all those horrific things that it shouldn't be doing to make sure it's not responding in a way that you don't think it should. I think one of the most common agents I hear people want to do is the HR assistant, HR policy within there. There is so much risk within that of it kind of misinterpreting policies, advising people things of the wrong area. You've got to make sure you've built your agent to deal with that properly.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes back to the subject of, especially like in Foundry, where you're deploying the model, you're writing the code. It's down to you to handle the responsible AI side of things. There are reasons why you would go down that route to control that. Maybe the topics that you're talking about in your agent, maybe the industry that you're in as well, and there's certain terms that maybe the default kind of responsible AI controls will block because it sees a word and it just has a particular context that it sees as a bad thing, but actually that's not what you want from a business perspective. But it all comes back to the evaluations and ensuring that yes, you want to build your interactions with the user and how do the models work and everything, but like, are you going to leak any data? Is the responses that you are getting are they reliable? Because it's non-deterministic, there are ways of evaluating the responses to understand, well, okay, what's my variance in terms of I have an acceptable level of responses, and if I do the same thing 5 times, do I get 5 different responses, but they are acceptable? Like it might be a different way of wording something versus it's got the complete wrong answer. right?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that the evaluation side of things, which are in Foundry, the things like the red teaming as well, it's all part of that testing package.
I was going to say, and in Copilot Studio, that evaluation's
And
in there as well. So just because you're low code, there's no excuse.
Exactly. If you're putting questions into any agent, you need a way of being able to understand what answers are going to come back, and whether they are acceptable or not. Not even from a security point of view, responsible AI point of view, like what we're discussing here, but just from a usability perspective. Like if you're getting wrong answers, people aren't going to use that agent. They're going to go, well, that wasn't very good, and I'll do it a different way. So,
absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap up there. Before I go down a rabbit hole, I'm already seeing this link here of Foundry Local comes to Android, which has got me intrigued. So I'm going to stop thinking about that. What I would say is I hope people have enjoyed that sort of slightly deeper dive into a few other areas. I'm finding I've gone back to a few other things at Ignite, and I wanted to go further. One of the things I always say about these big Microsoft conferences, I love it when they have something that I can put on my laptop and start playing with. And I think with A365, the new Foundry portal, it's a whole load of SDKs we've talked about there, type spec and those declarative agent schemas. There's so much to kind of go and explore. We've mentioned those things. There's going to be problems with it. There's going to be things that you could take in directions that you haven't thought about. So lots for people to do on there. I'm really excited about that. Is there anything else, Garry, that you wanted to leave as a parting thought to people?
Yeah, I guess, exactly what you're saying. A lot of things are frontier preview. Make sure that you get on the program, test these things out, give feedback as well. This is the time to do it, so that we can incorporate that feedback and make things either easier to get started with, maybe clearer. As you've seen, Kevin, some of the docs, it's like, okay, is that it? Is there a little bit more? But yeah, get on those programs, try those things out. I think it's clear that MCP again is the kind of the buzzword. It's getting everywhere. It's providing a different way of accessing data and being able to interact with that as well.
That's interesting. I don't think it was shouted about as much in the main keynotes, but I think it was a lot more in the kind of implementation type sessions.
Yeah.
So it's become really accepted, and now is, I think you agree, it's still the big thing there that's being used, but it's now, yay, MCP does everything. What's it actually do? I don't know, but I'm going to talk about it, to actual real implementations and not just kind of wrapping around sites and libraries. So yeah, I think it's a really I think it's a really interesting point. MCP was such a big thing, even though it wasn't shouted about so much this time.
Yeah, I think from that, the keynote was very much around compliance, control, governance. That was a huge part of the keynote. I think when we get to implementation, MCP is still the technology that is, it feels like this is a standard that everyone can agree upon across different organizations, Microsoft and other companies, different platforms. It's an evolving standard as well. Just the other day, there was MCP apps that was mentioned as a proposal, which is adding UI elements to MCP. Which is again another interesting way of approaching things, but it kind of comes back to MCP is a great way of being able to expose data, your different platforms to a language model, and it be effective as well. I've been using MCP through VS Code and GitHub Copilot chat for a long time now, and it's almost like you just go, why can't I have this when I'm working with a document? Or why can't I have this when I'm working in M365, right? But it takes time for the platforms to evolve. But now we're seeing that come through, and I think it's really interesting that we've got new ways of interacting with the data that we had before, which was, let's face it, calling Graph API. Now we've got different tools that we can use.
So on that closing note, because you kept mentioning MCP, I'm going to send a curse to Simon Owen, who every time I mention MCP starts singing OPP by Naughty by Nature. And so every time I sing MCP, it's like, yeah, MCP. So I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to try and sing it or rap it for anyone more than that, but I'm going to leave that as the parting thought for everyone, that MCP may be big, but still that earworm for you is bigger on that. Thank you very much, Garry. Much appreciated on there. Very sad you won't be over at ESPC next week, but hopefully catch up with you at some point soon.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you are at ESPC, do come and say hello to me or Zoe on that. Always love to have a chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap up there. Thank you for listening to the Copilot Connection.